In the barren expanse of Death Valley, a former soldier seeks solitude, but the dog he brings along, Atlas, knows better. As the night wind howls through the dunes, the dog frantically digs into the cracked earth, where Nathan uncovers a rusted iron door bearing the United States Air Force emblem. The soldier pays it little mind, but the dog's desperation hints at a secret the military buried beneath the sand, a truth an animal's instinct can sense, while a trained soldier cannot, and the answer will change everything. Before diving into the story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell to stay updated on the latest cases. Nathan Cole, a former Special Forces soldier who served in Afghanistan, left the city behind after years of battling war trauma and PTSD. He chose the edge of Death Valley, Nevada, a place devoid of human presence, to live with his German shepherd Atlas, his only remaining companion from his military days. In the early days in the harsh desert, Nathan set up a small shelter, searched for water, and scouted the terrain to start a new life. One afternoon, Atlas suddenly barked and bolted north, where the sand sank unnaturally. When Nathan arrived, the dog was digging frantically, exposing a patch of rusted metal. Digging further, Nathan uncovered a large iron door half buried in the sand, etched with the Air Force emblem and the words Project Echo. Checking the surroundings and finding no human traces, Nathan realized this was a remnant of an old military project. Tapping the door lightly, a hollow echo revealed a void below. At the door's edge, he found a handle attached to a steel ladder descending into the ground. A cold breeze carried the scent of metal and dampness, as if from a place long forgotten. He switched on his flashlight, its beam cutting through the dusty haze but not reaching the bottom. Nathan gripped the handle tightly, signaling Atlas to stay close. As the hinges creaked, the steel door inched open, revealing a pitch-black void below. He took a deep breath, feeling his heart pound, and stepped onto the first rung. The flashlight beam swayed with each step, reflecting off rusted steel. The deeper he went, the colder it got, the air thick with the smell of old metal. Atlas followed closely, occasionally pausing, ears perked in alertness. At the bottom, Nathan's feet hit a cold, damp concrete floor, and he found himself in a long, low-ceilinged corridor, with rusted pipes and wires lining the walls. Time's mark was evident in the peeling paint and faint moss patches. He swept the flashlight along the corridor. Steel doors stood silent, with faded signs reading maintenance, control bay, storage. The air was heavy and dry, broken only by Atlas's breathing and the echo of Nathan's boots. He tried a wall switch, but the system was long dead. Entering the first room, a technical area, he found scattered air tanks, pumps, and dusty fuse boxes. A checklist on the wall read Ecosystems Check, July 1978. He recorded it with his camera and marked the exit with red paint. The next room was a storage area. Rows of metal crates stamped with the Air Force logo, some pried open, containing wire coils, magnetic tapes, and old electronic components. Atlas led the way, sniffing constantly, then stopped at a closed steel door at the corridor's end. Nathan pulled the handle, the hinges screeching, revealing a larger control room. 4 old computer consoles lined up, swivel chairs still in place, cables tangled around table legs. He shone the light on the wall, spotting faded text, Echo Resonance Control, Terminal A. A wall clock was frozen at 2:17. Opening a file cabinet, he pulled out yellow documents stamped Top SE Secret, property of USAF. Among them was a schematic diagram signed by Lieutenant Colonel Dwight Harlan. Nathan photographed everything, then found a Death Valley map with a red dot marking his exact location, labeled Primary Resonance Field. He paused, trying to decipher the phrase, but lacked context. His flashlight flickered, the battery low, so he swapped it out and continued exploring. In the room's corner was a large electrical panel with broken fuses and charred cables. He flipped the main switch, no response. A voltage meter flickered faintly. Atlas let out a low bark and backed toward the corridor. Nathan froze, listening, hearing only the wind through a vent. He secured the door, checked for secondary exits, and before leaving, recorded the room. Consoles, logos, files, and faint boot prints in the dust. Everything suggested a systematic operation abruptly abandoned. He noted in his journal, underground facility, late 1970s. Signs of maintenance, post-abandonment. Done. Nathan led Atlas back to the corridor's start, checking his flashlight batteries and marking the exit. Looking back into the darkness, he felt the corridor wasn't an end, but the beginning of a deeper structure. Advancing a few meters, Nathan noticed the corridor branched right. Under the flashlight, a rusted steel sign read generator room. Instinct told him restoring power might reveal how the facility once operated. The door opened stiffly, revealing a narrow room with two old generators, their steel casings coated in dust and cobwebs. An aluminum operation guide on the wall, though faded, showed a startup diagram. Nathan wiped dust off the control panel, checked the fuel. One generator had about half a tank. He reconnected the main line, replaced a fuse from a nearby toolbox, and flipped the switch. The machine roared to life, shaking the room. Ceiling lights flickered before stabilizing, casting a weak yellow glow into the corridor. In the outer control room, small indicator lights on the panel lit up, sections powering back on. Nathan turned off his flashlight, observing the scene revived after decades of silence. CRT monitors flickered, gauges twitched, and cables hummed. He recorded the sight, then returned to the central control room to check the console. On the main screen, text appeared. System boot, partial power restored. A red light began blinking rhythmically nearby. He realized the central system still held data. Opening an old tape cabinet, he found a metal case labeled Test Recording, Echo 9. He inserted the tape into a nearby player. When he pressed play, the tape hissed. Then a hoarse voice emerged, likely an operator. Resonance test number 9. Pilot, ready for phase transition. Static followed. Then a scream. I can see it. Pull me back. The sound cut off, leaving only a long hum and electrical noise. Nathan stopped the tape, glancing at Atlas. The dog's ears were down, a low whine escaping, eyes fixed on the dark corridor. He grabbed more tapes, noting their labels, and moved to a nearby desk. An open notebook lay there, its final page scrawled with fields sustained beyond safe limit. Below was a sketch resembling an electromagnetic wave. As he read, the ceiling lights flickered sharply, the system emitting a short alarm before stopping. On the console, another red light activated. Warning, resonance field active. Nathan approached, checking the display. Readings were rising slightly. He tried the main switch, no response. The system seemed to be auto-restarting on an old cycle. Air ducts vibrated faintly, mechanical sounds echoing along the ceiling, as if something moved in the pipes or under the floor. Atlas growled, pacing near the door, facing the opposite corridor. Nathan shouldered his pack, dimmed the main light to reduce noise, and followed the sound. Crossing a side corridor, dim light flickered from fluorescent bulbs ahead. A wall sign read Sector B, Containment. The air grew thicker, reeking of ozone and hot metal, drying his throat. At a turn he saw handprints in dust and grease on the wall, trailing downward as if someone had fled in a hurry. The prints looked recent, not decades old like the rest. Nathan recorded them, then approached a room with a half-open door. Inside were metal cabinets, files scattered. He picked up a thick document labeled ECHO Field Test Logs. It contained frequency charts, test results, and a report. Subject E7 unstable, communication disrupted. Another page had a black and white photo of a pilot in a test chamber, face blurred by light, but behind was a hemispherical metal structure like a resonance antenna. Nathan set the file down, continuing to record. The electrical system sparked with a small pop. Some lights went out, leaving only flickering ones. A low, slow mechanical sound echoed from deeper, like gears turning. Atlas let out a short howl, body tense. Nathan checked the weapon at his hip, pinpointing the sound's direction. He knew he should retreat while he could, but the scout in him pushed forward. The urge to understand what he'd found outweighed fear. He took a deep breath, nodded to Atlas, and moved toward containment, where the light faded to red from emergency beacons. The console at the corridor's end repeated a chilling message, "Resonance field active." Nathan stepped through the door marked Containment Bay, gripping his flashlight. Atlas close behind. The half-opened steel door's rusted hinges screeched as he pushed it wider with his shoulder. A damp, cold gust hit him, laced with ozone and burnt metal. The flashlight swept through the dusty haze, illuminating rows of equipment cabinets and black cables coiling along the walls. At the room's center stood a steel hemispherical structure, about 6 meters wide, connected to dozens of thick cables. Its surface bore scorch marks and dents, as if from a pressure blast. A fallen sign nearby read faintly, "Echo Resonance Chamber. Authorized personnel only." Nathan approached, shining his light on a console slumped on the floor. A thick file was trapped under cables. He pulled it out, dusted it off, and flipped through. The bold title read, "Project Echo, Resonance Transmission Phase 3. It detailed experiments transmitting signals beyond the ionosphere, aiming to synchronize pilot brainwaves with ionospheric resonance waves for extended-range communication. A handwritten note in different ink followed. Proposed consciousness transmission via resonance field. High risk, prohibited. Nathan paused, processing, then continued. Later reports stated, program internally approved, conducted with 3 test pilots. 2 lost signal, 1 still responding. He read the final part closely, finding a scrawled note, subject E7, unstable two-way communication, 4.2-second delayed response, signs of cognitive dissociation. Signed by Harlan. A chill ran down Nathan's spine. He activated his recorder, replaying a tape from the control room. A hoarse voice counted down, 3, 2, 1, initiate resonance, followed by a loud hum. Then the pilot's voice, "I see, light, no feeling in my hands." A scream followed, then silence. Atlas whined softly, tail down. Nathan stopped the tape, silent for a moment, then scanned the room. Beside the resonance chamber was a thick, cracked observation window. Shining his light through, he saw a darker chamber beyond, its floor covered in ash and burn marks. Metal frames were warped, cables charred. A wall bore a charred handprint pointing toward the door. A sealed security door at the room's end was bolted with thick steel, labeled "Sealed after Incident 1279." Nathan checked the lock. Under the light, the steel's edges were melted and deformed, as if something had struck from inside. He photographed it, noted it, and scanned the floor. Dark brown patches covered wire fragments, resembling dried organic matter. A broken glass tube lay nearby, its faded label reading Neural Interface, E7. Nathan carefully bagged it as evidence. Atlas growled softly, stepping back. A metallic clang echoed from deeper within. He swept the light, seeing dust falling from the ceiling and a faint glow under the sealed door, suggesting a weak power source. Nathan edged closer, touching the surface. The metal was cold but vibrated faintly, as if electrified. He stepped back, recording the room, noting containment bay, widespread burn marks, signs of energy reaction, possible electromagnetic blast. Returning to the console, he found another tape among file boxes, labeled Echo Field, Final Recording. He played it. Static crackled, then the engineer's voice, frequency stable, resonance field open. Subject E7, responding via parallel signal. A weaker voice, buried in noise. "I'm seeing myself, there are 2, no, more." Metal shattered, alarms blared, then a long scream ended in silence. Nathan stopped the tape, looking at Atlas. The dog pressed against the wall, eyes on the sealed door. The room fell into thick silence. He adjusted the camera, capturing the main equipment. The corridor's light dimmed, leaving only the red emergency beacon flashing, reflecting off the metal like a lingering heartbeat. Nathan realized this wasn't just a failed experiment. Something had gone beyond technology, a mistake buried rather than fixed. He gathered the files, marked the coordinates, and prepared to leave. But his flashlight caught something in the ash, a human skeletal frame fused with cables and metal, as if the body had merged with the equipment. Atlas whimpered, backing away, while Nathan froze, eyes locked on the sight. In that moment, he knew he'd uncovered a truth he'd never forget. A hum from the console broke the silence, followed by sharp clicks as circuit breakers flipped back on. Ceiling lights in the containment area flared, then the entire system roared to life. The CRT screen glowed pale green, scrolling error messages mixed with main power restored, containment status breach. Nathan froze, heart racing. He hadn't touched the main power. An old alarm wailed, echoing through the corridors. Wall emergency lights turned red, flashing relentlessly. Atlas barked, facing the sealed door. From its gap, thick cold vapor poured out, carrying ozone and an acrid smell, like burnt plastic mixed with rotting flesh. Nathan stepped back, aiming his flashlight. The beam cut through the haze, revealing moving shapes behind the metal. Slow, heavy mechanical scrapes sounded, like giant gears stirring after decades. He raised his camera, recording briefly, then the light hit something in the test chamber, a figure nearly 2 meters tall, its upper half metal, the lower human-like. Cables pierced its shoulders, its head covered by a metal mask with breathing tubes. Each small movement produced a screech, followed by hissing pressure. A small red light on its chest blinked faintly. Nathan stood rooted. A faded nameplate on its chest read, E7. He understood instantly this was the subject from the files. Not a corpse, but something existing between life and machinery. Atlas growled, backing away, fur bristling. The ventilation system's hum shifted, cold air blasting harder, stirring dust. The chemical stench stung Nathan's eyes. The control room screen displayed containment integrity, 12%. A long screech sounded, then metal bent. The sealed steel door buckled outward, a few inches, white smoke pouring through. Nathan retreated further, Atlas barking wildly. He knew if the system kept running, pressure would destroy the area. On a secondary console were 3 auxiliary fuel tanks for the generator. He rushed over, opening a valve, the sharp smell of industrial fuel filling the air. The noise behind grew louder, mixing mechanical screeches with steady metallic thuds. Something heavy was moving. Nathan pulled Atlas back, lit a lighter from his pocket, and ignited the leaking fuel. Flames erupted, spreading across the floor. A localized explosion shook the room, the pressure pushing cold air and toxic smoke back down the corridor. Ceiling lights died, leaving only the red emergency flashes. Nathan grabbed Atlas's leash and sprinted for the exit. At a turn, he glanced back. Through the smoke and flames, the half-human, half-machine figure stood, its metal glowing red, the chest light blinking rapidly like an accelerating pulse. A low sound rumbled, either mechanical or a distorted human groan. The wall behind it cracked and partially collapsed. Flames spread, reflecting off the steel floor. Nathan ran full speed, his footsteps echoing. Atlas kept pace, occasionally barking warnings. Near the generator room, the thuds behind became a continuous roar. The tunnel shook, dust falling like rain. Nathan reached for the main power's emergency switch, but the system no longer responded. The red override light glowed steadily. Too late, he realized the system had entered an emergency protocol, possibly triggering a full shutdown. Their only option was to escape before the facility collapsed. He pulled Atlas through the technical room, where yellow lights flickered like strobes. Each step was met with cracking pipes overhead and scorching heat. Another larger explosion roared behind, scattering dust and metal fragments. The blast knocked Nathan forward, but he pulled Atlas up. They raced for the steel ladder. Hot wind blew against them, carrying ash and chemical fumes. Reaching the first rung, Nathan glanced back. Red light still flashed deep in the corridor, accompanied by a relentless mechanical drone, as if something was awakening in the rubble. He tightened his grip on the leash, climbed, Atlas close behind. Below, flames consumed the test area, while the containment breach alarm wailed on. Echoing through the collapsing underground chambers, the second explosion roared up like a blow from the earth. Heat and smoke surged through the escaping air, forcing Nathan to climb faster. Atlas stayed close, claws scraping the steel rungs. As they neared the hatch, a blast of hot air thick with burning fuel and dense gray smoke engulfed the opening. Nathan leaned in, shoving the iron hatch with his shoulder, but the hinges were warped from the blast pressure. He wedged his fingers into the gap, pulling with all his strength. A screech rang out as the hatch popped open, releasing a cloud of sand and smoke. Nathan pushed Atlas up first, then climbed out himself. The outside air, though scorching, was far easier to breathe. Behind him, black smoke poured from the hatch, carrying bits of steel and searing heat. The sand beneath his feet vibrated in pulses, a sign the underground wasn't yet still. Kneeling, coughing through the dust, caking his face, Nathan turned and yanked the hatch shut, using a nearby iron bar to block the smoke. Seconds later, the door jolted halfway open, its edges warped, emitting a long, creaking groan. Nathan stepped back, raising his gun, waiting. Nothing emerged, only the slow, steady grind of metal echoing from deep below, like an old machine restarting. Atlas barked softly, retreating, fur bristling. Nathan lowered his weapon, staying silent, listening. The sound didn't stop. It blended with a faint vibration in the ground, as if parts of the facility below were still active. He knew he couldn't stay long. If the system was still running, the explosion might trigger a chain reaction. Pulling Atlas away from the pit, he moved along a low rocky ridge to find a vantage point. From a spot 200 meters higher, he looked back. A thick black column of smoke coiled into the desert, slanting west with the wind. The sand trembled lightly, fine dust hovering like mist. As Nathan assessed the wind's direction, another sound cut in, a low, steady thrum, the familiar beat of helicopter rotors. He dropped to his knees, pulling Atlas down with him. The engine noise grew sharper, its pitch rising. Within seconds, 3 black helicopters appeared from the south, flying low, unmarked, no lights, their sleek bodies glinting in the sun. They descended in a triangular formation around the pit, their rotors whipping the sand into swirling vortexes. Nathan pulled a small pair of binoculars from his pack to watch. From the first 2 choppers, figures in black gear, helmets, and gas masks leapt out. They moved tactically, splitting into teams to surround the pit, scanning with handheld devices. One signaled, and another helicopter lowered, dropping 2 large metal containers marked with biohazard symbols. Nathan recognized the protocol: site recovery, contamination cleanup, a method he'd seen in special ops when the military erased a mission's traces. He froze, memorizing details: uniforms without rank insignia, only small silver triangle patches. Their devices were low-frequency energy scanners, used for electromagnetic targets. Atlas stirred, but Nathan signaled for silence. In the fading light of dusk, the scene was both surreal and chillingly precise. They worked fast. 2 set up sensors at the pit's edge. Another relayed orders via radio. Within minutes, the black smoke thinned, replaced by white vapor, likely chemical agents pumped below. Nathan panned his binoculars, spotting a 4th helicopter circling higher, possibly for recording or surveillance. Everything was orderly. No voices, just the clatter of metal and the roar of rotors across the empty desert. He stayed still, waiting for them to finish. About 20 minutes later, a flare shot downward, signaling withdrawal. The operatives packed their gear, dropped 2 explosive charges into the pit, and signaled for extraction. As the last chopper lifted off, the ground shook again, sand erupting into a thick cloud, blanketing the area. Nathan ducked, holding Atlas close. When the wind settled, only a large sunken crater remained, covered in scorched sand and chemical haze. He understood some agency had moved swiftly to bury what lay below, but that mechanical sound from earlier hadn't stopped. It still echoed faintly from the earth, steady and distant, like the pulse of a machine refusing to die. Nathan scanned the area, seeing no one, then quietly packed his camera, checking the data. Atlas stared at the crater, growling softly in bursts. Nathan rested a hand on its head, whispering to himself in a hoarse, smoke-scarred voice, "We need to get out of here." He tugged the leash and walked into the fading dusk, leaving behind a desert swallowing the traces of what had just happened. Nathan watched from afar as the sun sank below the horizon, darkness flooding the crater area. He lay flat in a rocky crevice, his handheld camera on a small tripod, lens aimed at the center where the helicopters had retreated. In the dim flashlight glow, the black-clad figures moved with the precision of a battlefield film crew. They placed metal containers along the edge, pulled cables, opened shock-proof plastic cases, and set up sensors. Nathan panned the lens, zooming in on each action, capturing container labels, scanning devices, how they secured frequency antennas, then carefully scanned their uniforms, no large insignias, just silver triangle patches, though many wore black wristbands with coded symbols. Their work screamed not civilian emergency response, but a specialized unit with a standardized recovery protocol. Two split into a team, one advancing to the pit's edge, pulling up remaining metal fragments. They worked systematically. One scanned the pit's walls with a handheld device, another tossed samples into an isolation container. Thermal and magnetic field detectors were placed around the rim, while others opened biohazard-labeled cases, checking samples with sealed rods and tubes. Nathan saw them place deformed metal pieces into antistatic trays, wrapping cables in insulating tape before transferring them to containers. Each sealed container was labeled with a printed tag: Evidence, Eco Facility, Handle as Hazard, with a code. They photographed the site, logged GPS coordinates with specialized devices, and sent data to a laptop on a large container. Calculation, delegation, packing, all followed a strict process. At another corner, two drilled into the concrete wall to place charges to destroy the remaining underground structure. They covered the spots with thermal shielding, connecting detonator wires to a trigger. These moments were swift and quiet. Communication was gestures, nods, and flashing laser signals. Nathan noted their professionalism, how they sealed the pit's gas flow with a tarp, pumped neutralizing gas to kill the smell, and placed chemical-absorbing canisters to prevent chain reactions. They cleaned with focus, taking tapes, remaining consoles, paper scraps, and even burnt metal frame pieces. A helicopter circled high like a watchful sun, recording from above, a small drone detached, scanning the surface's spectrum and relaying data to a mobile station. Each time it passed, the ground team ducked, adjusted gear, and resumed. The cycle seemed to be collect, measure, isolate, seal, and finally destroy unneeded remnants. Nathan recorded everything: equipment, actions, timing, location, thinking if questioned, he'd have proof of the operation's scale and precision. Another group spread tarps over burn marks, spraying a white chemical, likely for bioneutralization. They carefully collected sticky yellow material samples, sealed them in boxes, then welded the lids shut and applied electronic seals. Nathan zoomed in as one printed a barcode on a lid. The code read, AUR 1979 Echo, matching the name from the files. After gathering samples and gear, they dragged large metal plates over the pit, covered them with technical fabric, and scattered sand atop. Another team triggered wires, placing preset charges at key underground structural points, linked to a remote detonator in a steel case. A single activation would shatter pipes and seal all access. It was too professional, too prepared. They knew exactly what to collect. No fumbling or trial and error. Nathan guessed the recovery team had an underground map or technical documents detailing the facility's layout, meaning they were tied to the agency that ran or oversaw Project Echo. Waiting until dark and working silently showed they avoided drawing local attention or anything that could record loud noise. Nathan listened to every sound, trying to predict when they'd detonate. As packing neared completion, one scanned the pit's edge with a laser, checked a blueprint on a laptop, and nodded. A green signal flashed on the detonator, indicating readiness. They retreated a few meters for safety, secured the final cover, and ran to the helicopters. Nathan kept recording, hands trembling slightly from adrenaline. Seeing their withdrawal signal, he knew he had to leave that night. In this place, at this time, in an area that could be locked down any moment, he couldn't wait for dawn. He packed the camera, crawled into the crevice's base, checked his pack. Spare batteries, water, knife, Atlas's leash. He hid the memory card with the footage in his jacket, doused the main flashlight, and waited until the helicopters lifted off and the smoke thinned. As the last rotors faded beyond the horizon and only a few figures remained cleaning up, Nathan crept away from light sources, moving along the rocky ridge south toward an old marked trail. Atlas stayed close, nose brushing his hand, its silent, unyielding presence enough to tell Nathan they'd just escaped an unforgettable night. That night, Nathan and Atlas returned to a temporary camp nearly 5 kilometers from the crater. The desert night wind was cold and dry, carrying the smell of smoke and chemicals from the north, where the underground facility had been buried. He set up the tarp over the entrance, checked the perimeter with an infrared light to ensure no one followed. Atlas lay by the door, head turned outward, ears perked at every wind shift. In the faint glow of a ceiling-hung flashlight, Nathan unpacked his bag, pulling out the camera, memory card, paper files, and hard drive from the bunker. He plugged the card into his laptop, the flickering screen showing the day's footage. Images of helicopters, operatives, containers, and the crater before the blast were clear. Each frame was time-stamped with GPS coordinates. He jotted a note: organized recovery, goal, erase site, high probability, USAF internal or private contractor. Then he opened the bunker's photographed files, facility schematics, personnel hierarchy, and signatures with top secret, Echo Command Facility, 12 stamps. On the first page's corner, bold text read, Commanding Officer, Lieutenant Colonel Dwight Harlan. The name recurred in multiple reports. Harlan signed test logs, approved resonance field extension items. Nathan dug through another file. A medical report noted 3 pilots missing, followed by a program suspension order, coded HO 79 terminated. But the next report was titled, Continuation Approved, under contract, AUR Systems, with Harlan's faded electronic signature. He paused, cross-referencing. AUR matched the label on the operative's containers. AUR 1979 Echo. It clicked. Project Echo was never shut down. It was handed to a private entity, under military oversight. Nathan leaned back, the familiar feeling of a soldier returning, when ended missions were simply recoded and continued in the shadows. He opened the final test recording. Plugging in earphones, static and a distorted scream filled his ears, mixed with an engineer's voice. Echo field active, subject, linked, unresponsive. Then silence, followed by a long screech like an overloaded compressor. Nathan winced, stopped it, and switched to another tape from the containment room. The sound was faint but clear, a low hum of mechanical breathing and repeating electromagnetic pulses. Amplifying it, the laptop speakers vibrated, the frequency resonating until Atlas jumped up, barked sharply, and backed into the camp's corner. Nathan quickly lowered the volume, yanking out the earphones. The dog stared at the laptop, growling softly. He checked his handheld radio, a faint interference signal, its frequency matching the 4.2 Hz from the Subject E7 report. Nathan typed a note, frequency still active, possible source, not destroyed. A chill ran down his spine. If the facility was buried, what was still emitting this resonance signal? He opened mapping software, inputting coordinates from the files. Markers stretched along Death Valley's eastern edge, labeled Facility 11, Facility 13. This wasn't the only site. Harlan may have set up multiple test points to maintain a resonance network. He zoomed in, marking each with a red icon. Outside, wind whipped the tarp, sand pattering against it. Nathan backed up everything to a spare hard drive, storing it in a shock-proof case. He doused the light, sitting in darkness, listening to every sound outside. His old instincts stirred unease. If the recovery team was tied to Harlan's system, they'd likely sweep the area for witnesses or evidence. The data he carried was now the only proof Project Echo never stopped. Atlas whined, lifting its head at a distant sound. Nathan grabbed the infrared binoculars, scanning north. Near a hill a kilometer away, small lights moved in a line, possibly off-road vehicles or patrols. He shut off his devices, crouched low, and packed the laptop and files. On reflex, he smothered the camp's fire, covering it with sand to erase smoke traces. 10 minutes later, engine noise grew clearer. Headlights swept the sand, then cut off. Nathan stayed silent, noting the wind's shift. The vehicles seemed to veer toward the crater, not yet spotting him. He signaled Atlas, and they moved behind the camp, where a trail led east. Before leaving, Nathan opened his handheld GPS, marking the spot as Echo Camp 1, adding, "Leave area before dawn. Suspected pursuit unit." He turned to Atlas, tightening the leash. The dog tensed ready. Nathan shouldered his pack, securing the data case. His watch read 23:47. He glanced back at the camp, a makeshift wooden frame in a sea of sand, now a dangerous trace. A strong gust erased their footprints. Nathan took a deep breath, then with Atlas, headed east toward the mountains, where the trail would lead them out before sunrise. Nathan and Atlas moved through the cold sand under silver moonlight. The desert wind blew in dry gusts, dusting everything lightly. They traveled for nearly an hour, following uneven terrain eastward. The GPS on Nathan's wrist blinked a weak signal, battery down to 3 bars. He switched to power-saving mode, moving while checking behind. No lights followed, but his battle-honed instincts warned it wouldn't last. Around midnight, reaching harder ground near the valley's edge, the radio in his pack emitted a strange sound. A series of short, steady signals mixed with low-frequency static. Nathan stopped, pulled out the radio, and checked the display. The frequency matched the resonance band from Project Echo's data. What chilled him was the signal's direction. It wasn't transmitting, it was receiving. Someone had locked onto his device's GPS. Without hesitation, Nathan yanked out the radio's battery, smashed it on the ground, and buried it under sand. Atlas turned, growling softly. Nathan whispered, "Let's go, we're tagged." They sped up, hugging a narrow rocky crevice, heading for an old trail toward the hills. Less than half an hour later, engine noise echoed from afar. Low and heavy, the distinct rumble of high-powered off-road vehicles. Nathan doused his flashlight, peering through infrared binoculars. Westward, 3 light dots moved fast in a line formation. Under moonlight, he made out their shapes, armored black military SUVs. No plates, headlights off, using infrared. They were heading straight for him. Nathan checked his terrain map, pinpointing the nearest cover, a rocky landslide 3 kilometers away. He crouched, running with Atlas, controlling his breathing. Behind, the sound of tires grinding sand grew closer. From above, a faint drone's light appeared, circling, its infrared beam scanning the ground. Nathan dropped flat, pulling Atlas under a boulder. The beam swept inches above their heads, then moved on. He knew they had minutes before the pursuit closed in. As the lead SUV's lights flashed in the distance, Nathan checked his gun, attaching a night vision scope and removing the suppressor. He positioned himself behind a high rock, with a clear view of the slope the vehicles would cross. As the first SUV approached, he waited until its front tires hit a sharp rock patch, then fired. The bullet struck the auxiliary fuel tank, sparking flames and smoke. The vehicle swerved, flipped, and crashed into a boulder. The other 2 braked hard, one sliding sideways to shield, the other turning to sweep the area with headlights. Nathan seized the chaos, pulling Atlas to the right slope, crawling to a lower crevice. An enemy flare shot up, bathing the sand in red. He unhooked his pack, pulling out 2 smoke grenades and 1 concussive grenade from his old kit. As 3 figures left the vehicles, advancing toward the hill, Nathan lobbed the concussive grenade behind, then pulled Atlas back. A dull blast erupted, sand and smoke swirling into a thick cloud. The area filled with shouts and alarms. He used the moment, circling against the wind, cutting across the hill's ridge. The headlights from the last SUV swept after them, but only caught a thick cloud of dust. Nathan crawled low, Atlas pressed close beside him. Suddenly, a faint whir passed overhead. The scout drone lowered, its infrared beam skimming the ground. Nathan pulled a laser pointer from his jacket, aiming it directly at the drone's lens. The sensor overloaded, the drone wobbled, lost control, and crashed into the sand with a small explosion. He knew this would signal to the pursuers that their target was alive, but it bought a few minutes before they could deploy another. As the light from the pursuit faded behind, Nathan and Atlas slipped into a narrow rock crevice, where a collapsed wall formed a natural overhang. He checked his pack, pulling out medical tape to wrap Atlas's front paw. A sharp stone had cut the skin during their run. The dog whimpered softly, but didn't resist. Nathan tore a strip from his old shirt for a makeshift bandage, patting Atlas's head to calm him. Engine noise still echoed from afar, occasionally mixed with the pop of flares. They were sweeping the area, possibly using ground radar to track heat signatures. Nathan pulled out his GPS, shutting off all power, including the wristwatch. He knew any signal now was a trap. After ensuring no light leaked, he lay flat, eyes fixed on the distant western glow. Nearly an hour later, the wind shifted, carrying fine dust and the smell of burnt oil. The engine sounds faded, replaced by the metallic clank of vehicles climbing rocky slopes. Nathan guessed they believed the target was neutralized in the blast and were pulling back. He waited 10 more minutes before moving. When no artificial lights remained, Nathan sat up, taking a deep breath. Atlas lifted his head, licking the blood on his paw. Nathan looked at the dog, whispering, "Good, we're okay." Under moonlight, both were covered in faint dust. Nathan opened his notebook, jotting 047. Pursuit detected, 3 SUVs plus 1 drone. 2 vehicles disabled. Atlas minor injury. Hiding at 36.41, N116.82W. Continue southeast at dawn. He stowed the notebook, leaning against the rock wall, fighting to stay alert. Beneath the desert, residual daytime heat mixed with the biting night chill. Nathan knew if they wanted to survive, they had to leave early before satellites or recon planes swept the area. Atlas lay beside him, head on his leg, eyes open, watching the dark. Nathan gripped his gun, mentally mapping their route, step by step, because now they carried not just classified data, but a reason to be hunted to the end. Near dawn, a faint glow on the horizon separated from the purple mountains. Nathan woke from a brief nap, body aching but mind sharp. Atlas lay nearby, bandaged paw forward, brown eyes fixed on the crevice's exit. The early wind brought a chill, rustling sand through the gaps. Nathan checked his pack, pulling out the laptop and backup drive. The battery was low, but he needed to send the data now before being tracked or the pursuit resumed. He set up a handheld satellite antenna, activating the signal device. The screen booted slowly, showing a weak signal, but enough for a temporary connection. In his encrypted contacts, he selected the one name he trusted, Emily Rhodes, an investigative journalist who worked with him in 2014 on a Middle East operation, exposing hidden bioweapons projects. She'd toppled high-ranking officers and earned his respect for confronting the system. Nathan opened an encrypted email, uploading the heavy data package, bunker videos, photos of the cleanup operatives, Project Echo files, and facility maps. He added a brief message, urgent, Echo not terminated. I have proof, being pursued. Need Harlan's identity confirmed. Nen. He hit send, watching the progress bar crawl as the signal flickered. It took nearly 10 minutes for the device to confirm, upload complete. Nathan immediately dismantled the antenna, cleared the cache, and powered down. He buried the device under thin sand, keeping only the encrypted handheld phone. Atlas stayed still, occasionally glancing over. About an hour later, as they left the crevice and crossed a slope southward, The phone vibrated. An encrypted message appeared. Incoming encrypted message, road/secure. Nathan opened it. Data received intact. Preliminary verification confirmed. Project Echo, ionospheric signal transmission program, halted 1979 after high-level casualty incident. Harlan's records classified, now with Aeronautics Defense Systems, privatized 2005. You're holding highly classified material, stay cautious. Meet and Beatty, 36°54 Nen, 116°45 W, tomorrow morning. I'll come alone. ER. Nathan read each line, feeling both relief and dread. High-level casualty incident. Military jargon for catastrophic experiments with heavy losses, erased from official history. He understood, this meant what he saw in the bunker wasn't an isolated failure, but the heart of a deadly project that vanished. People. He paused, looking east where the sun lit the desert. About 30 kilometers away was Beatty, a small town off Highway 95 where he could blend among tourists and trucks. Though risky, he needed to meet Emily in person. Only she could get the information out without government channels. Nathan pocketed the phone, tugged Atlas's leash. They moved through the morning, weaving through low dunes, pausing briefly as the sun rose. The desert turned into a blazing sea, heat shimmering off the ground. Near noon, Nathan found a dirt road to an old highway. He spotted an abandoned driller's pickup, its fuel tank half full. After a quick check, he started the engine, its hum a lifeline. Atlas leapt into the passenger seat, massive frame dust-covered. Nathan turned north, following the old highway. Wind whipped fine sand against the windshield. His mind replayed the facts. Harlan, Aeronautics, project ongoing. Project Echo might have been reactivated as new military tech, and if so, the biomechanical beings in the bunker were just the first tests. As the sun dipped west, they reached Beatty's edge. The small town emerged from the sand, gas stations, a motel, a diner, a sheriff's office. Nathan parked behind an old motel, renting a room with cash to avoid a trace. He waited inside, curtains drawn, only faint hallway light seeping in. At nearly 9 that evening, the encrypted phone buzzed. A short message. I'm here, Beatty Diner, back table. No names, E. Nathan locked the door, checked his gun and drive, and headed out with Atlas. The streets were quiet, desert wind carrying oil and dust. In the distance, the diner's neon flickered. He walked fast, scanning for shadows. At the door, he saw a woman with short brown hair, dark leather jacket, at the back table, phone in hand. Though nearly a decade had passed, Nathan recognized her sharp, alert eyes. Emily looked up, her gaze flicking to him, then Atlas. No greeting, just a slight nod. Her voice low and firm. We need to talk somewhere else. Nathan understood. If she chose Beatty, the place was likely watched. He nodded, signaling to follow, and they left the diner through the back, blending into the desert night. In the distance, a black SUV sat motionless by the road, headlights off, but as Nathan glanced back, he caught a glint from a camera lens on the windshield, a clear sign the hunt wasn't over. Nathan and Emily left the diner, slipping down a narrow alley behind the main street. Most streetlights were off, only faint yellow glows on cracked concrete. Emily led him to an old motel on the town's edge, a row of low, faded rooms, the Sage Motel sign swaying in the night wind. She opened room 4, motioning Nathan and Atlas inside. The room held a single bed, a wooden table, and an old laptop on an ammo crate. Emily locked the door, drawing the curtains. You brought all the data? She asked softly. Nathan nodded, placing the hard drive on the table. She plugged it into the laptop, the screen displaying encrypted files. I checked some frames from your video, she said evenly. Project Echo was Air Force run, but when funding cut in the late 70s, DARPA took over secretly. I got leaked documents confirming it. She opened a PDF, a budget report. Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency. Contract AUR Systems, FY 1978-1980. Below listed expenses for resonance-based communication technologies. Emily pointed to faint text. This links Project Echo to Aeronautics Defense Systems. When DARPA stopped public support, the tech was privatized under Colonel Dwight Harlan. They didn't cancel it, they renamed, recoded, and continued. Nathan stared at the screen, jaw tight. So what I saw in the bunker was leftover experiments. Emily nodded. Yes. Harlan was the only one who fully understood the resonance mechanism. Records show he left the military in 1982, then vanished. In 2005, he resurfaced on Aeronautics' leadership list, and by 2010, they signed Pentagon contracts for neuromechanical integration tech. You get what I mean? Nathan stayed silent. Recalling the metal frame in the containment bay, human remains fused with machinery. Emily continued. Harlan didn't just rebuild the tech, he used human bodies as resonance components. That project never stopped. Atlas growled softly, head toward the window. Nathan signaled for silence, drawing his gun. A low, steady engine hum echoed outside. Emily closed the laptop, unplugging the drive. They're tracking you, she said quickly. My signal was jammed after opening the files. Nathan moved to the window, parting the curtain. Under a dim streetlight, two black SUVs idled nearby, headlights off. A figure stepped out, scanning the rooms with a device. Back exit, Nathan said, voice low. He opened the bathroom door, smashing the small window. Atlas leapt through first, Nathan and Emily following. They crossed a trash-strewn backyard, circling to the motel's rear lot. The front room's door burst open, followed by two sharp gunshots. Bullets tore through the brick wall, dust flying. Nathan pulled Emily down, firing two quick shots back. One shadow collapsed. Atlas barked loudly, lunging toward footsteps, stalling the others briefly. Nathan seized the moment, jumping into the old pickup he'd hidden, pulling Emily and Atlas into the cab. The engine roared, tires kicking up sand. The SUVs behind flashed their lights, giving chase. Nathan swerved sharply, the truck hitting the main road, tires screeching on asphalt. Bullets pinged the truck bed, sharp and cold. Emily clutched the drive, ducking. They can't let us leave town, she shouted over the wind. Nathan veered around a curve, checking the rear view, two SUVs closing in. He slammed the brakes, yanking the handbrake. The truck spun sideways, dust billowing. The SUVs couldn't dodge. One crashed into a pole, the other skidded. Nathan restarted, flooring the gas, racing toward the highway, headlights blazed into the dark. The pursuing engines fading, outside town, they slowed. Got a safe place? Nathan shook his head. Not here, they'll sweep the area. We need to leave Nevada. Atlas sat between them, head turned back. Your data, Nathan said, eyes on the road. Can you back it up? I've got a private server in Reno, independent line. But I need 6 hours to upload everything. Nathan nodded. You'll get it. Beatty's lights faded, only a faint glow through desert dust. Nathan steered onto a northern trail, avoiding the main highway. Ahead lay low mountains, moonlight glinting off ridges. The wind blew cold and dry, carrying the burnt engine smell. Emily looked out, voice low. If your video's real, they created something beyond control. Harlan will do anything to retrieve this data. Nathan replied curtly. Then we stay one step ahead. The cab filled with the steady engine hum. Atlas rested his head on the passenger armrest, eyes half closed but body taut. Nathan glanced in the mirror, seeing only dark sky behind. In that moment, he knew their escape wasn't over. Beatty was just the start of a longer journey, where Project Echo's buried secrets could no longer stay silent. Nathan's old pickup stopped on a canyon slope, 40 kilometers north of Beatty. Moonlight faintly lit jagged cliffs. They chose this spot as a temporary halt. Nathan killed the engine, covering the truck with a camouflage tarp, and set up a signal jammer to avoid tracking. Emily brought the laptop to the back seat, connecting the bunker's hard drive. Atlas lay nearby, head on the pack, eyes fixed on the door. In the screen's glow, text appeared. Project Echo. Internal Memorandum, October 1978. Emily read slowly. Objective: sustain ionospheric communication via human brainwave resonance. Intended application: nonlinear pilot control center communication in high interference conditions. She flipped pages, voice dropping. But after phase 2, it expanded to neural resonance transfer, converting neural signals into stable electromagnetic waves. Nathan leaned in, listening, then asked, "Converting neural signals? You mean they tried sending people through waves?" Emily nodded. "Not bodies, but consciousness. They believed syncing brainwaves with ionospheric resonance could let humans exist in frequency, like radio signals in space." Nathan glanced at Atlas, the dog tilting his head, seemingly listening. Emily opened Lab Log, Phase 3. A handwritten entry, Subject E7 showed emotional response during disconnection. Screaming lasted 3 minutes. Signal response persisted 0.12 seconds after brain death. Nathan reread the last line, brow furrowed. 0.12 seconds after brain death, they detected neural activity despite a dead body. Emily switched to a simulation image, a simple graphic of a resonance layer, 2 intersecting waves forming a bright zone, captioned, "Transient Cognitive Field, capable of temporarily sustaining consciousness data structure." Both fell silent. Nathan recalled the half-human, half-machine figure in the lab, its chest light blinking like a heartbeat. He said, voice low, "They didn't just test communication, they trapped human minds in machines." Emily nodded, fingers on the keyboard, "And that's likely why the incident happened. Those transmitted didn't vanish. They were stuck between 2 realities." She played an accompanying simulation video, faint static humming. A wave graph appeared, oscillating, then stopping. As Emily raised the volume, a deep, almost inaudible hum made the truck's air vibrate. Atlas sprang up, growling softly, ears erect. The dog faced the screen, barking sharply, then whining oddly. Nathan quickly lowered the volume, hand on its neck. "Easy, Atlas." The dog stayed tense, eyes locked on the speaker, sensing something humans couldn't hear. Emily looked up, voice hoarse. 4.2 hertz. Matches the signal in your recording. Nathan activated a portable wave detector, scanning. The needle twitched, showing a faint rhythmic signal, 4.2 hertz. "Something's still transmitting," he said. "A resonance source they didn't destroy." Emily opened the chief engineer's final log, signed Dr. A. Heller. Shaky handwriting, Harlan demanded the resonance field stay active post-incident. He believed E7's consciousness persisted in the feedback loop. I objected, but orders were absolute. We heard voices in the system, pleading, repeating, unending. "Tomorrow they'll seal the lab. I fear we've touched what we shouldn't." Emily stopped, meeting Nathan's eyes. Harlan believed he could recall those lost in the test. Nathan stared out the window, where wind-swirled sand passed the cliffs. "If so, that system isn't dead. The resonance might still be active, transmitting outward." He glanced at Atlas, now calm but eyes on the blank screen. "Can we pinpoint the source?" Emily asked. Nathan opened mapping software on the drive, inputting signal coordinates. The map showed red dots arcing along the Amargosa Range. "These are auxiliary facilities. One might still be a relay station," he said. "Harlan's keeping the core data somewhere, maybe in a similar site." Emily paused, then said softly, "If you're right, there could be more E7s." The words thickened the air. Nathan recalled the scream in the recording, the cold vapor from the sealed chamber. He closed the laptop, whispering, "We need to expose this before they erase it." Emily nodded. "I'll transfer the data to my Reno server, but we need to move now. They might have traced our earlier transmission." Nathan checked his gun, scanning outside. At the hill's base, faint lights flickered kilometers away, likely headlights. She was right, they had little time. He packed the laptop, wrapping the drive in anti-static cloth, handing it to Emily. "You keep it, I'll handle the rest." Her eyes were steady. If I can't release it, you ensure this gets to someone who can publish. Nathan nodded, tugging Atlas's leash. Before leaving the truck, Emily glanced at the blank screen, whispering, "If they're really trapped in that signal, they might still hear." The next second, the wave detector beeped once, as if responding. Nathan and Emily froze, eyes meeting in silence. The desert wind strengthened, sweeping the canyon, carrying a low hum, half machine, half like distant breathing. At twilight, Nathan and Emily left the canyon. They traveled all night, crossing cold sand and abandoned trails toward northern Nevada. As dawn's first light crept over the desert's edge, they stopped at an abandoned telecom station. Emily's old relay point for military investigations. The antenna stood intact, its solar-powered backup running weakly. They set up the laptop, connecting to satellite, and began scouring remaining federal database files. Emily sat across from Nathan, eyes glued to the screen, displaying dozens of decoded files. "I found Aeronix's contract list," she said, voice tense. "Some are encrypted, but this is clear. Neural Resonance Interface Project. Contract No. DA 1143. Signed between Aeronix Defense Systems and U.S. Department of Defense." She zoomed in on an electronic signature, Dwight Harlan, Chief Executive Officer. Date December 8, 2017. Nathan stared at the screen. So he's not just alive, he's running a company exploiting the tech that killed his test team. Emily nodded slightly. Aeronix leads in neural resonance sensors. They market it as brain signal drone control, but really, she opened another file. This secret contract specifies remote resonance control for cognitive warfare. They're cloning Project Echo. Nathan leaned back, chest tight. "The government knows?" Emily paused, then said, "Some in the DoD do. They approved funding for Spectre Echo's commercialized version. Harlan runs it all." She showed a screenshot. Harlan at 60, silver hair cropped, cold eyes at an Aeronix press event. This is the man who ordered the facility sealed in 1979. 40 years later, he's still standing on its ashes, now with legal power to continue. Atlas lifted his head at Emily's voice. Nathan patted him, eyes on the screen. "Without physical proof, no one will believe us. Harlan will deny it, claim it's just new tech built on old principles." Emily nodded. "Right, what we have is circumstantial. Only one thing can bring him down: Echo Facility's core data." She reopened Nathan's photographed schematic, pointing to a red-marked area, Echo Core Storage, lowest level. "If we get the original data, it'll have operational logs, personnel lists, all Harlan-signed orders. I can cross-reference with DARPA records to prove the link." Nathan studied it, pensive. "But that facility collapsed. They blew it, buried the area." Emily shook her head. "They only destroyed Containment Bay. Pursed the schematic. The core data is in a separate lower technical level, independently protected. Unless they directly bomb the core, the storage could be intact." Nathan was quiet, then asked, "You sure you can extract it?" Emily nodded, eyes resolute. "I worked with DARPA's signal analysis team on a neural project. If the core's active, I can copy the memory via a secondary port." "The problem is," she trailed off. Nathan finished, "we have to go back to Death Valley." They locked eyes, silent. Wind whistled through wall gaps, a low moan. Nathan broke the quiet. "If we don't go back," Harlan continues, "he'll use that tech to build something stronger, deadlier." Emily replied, voice soft but firm, "And more people will vanish in unnamed labs." Nathan stood, pulling the map from his jacket pocket and spreading it on the table. He circled the old bunker's location, then traced a line to the western hills where he'd hidden before. "We'll approach from the opposite direction, through the ventilation shafts. The schematics show a technical tunnel straight to the data core. They won't expect anyone to return." Emily opened her pack, checking equipment, a handheld computer, power decoder, cutting tools. "I'll handle the copying. You handle safety." Atlas stood, stretching, as if sensing the shift in the air. Nathan knelt to retie the leash, eyes resolute. "We move at nightfall. They have satellite surveillance during the day. I'll prep the truck." Emily shut down the laptop, unplugging the drive, the screen's glow fading, leaving only the wind whistling through the walls. Before stepping outside, she said, "If we fail, at least the world will know Project Echo existed." Nathan replied curtly, "No, we'll get it out." As they left the telecom station, the sun had fully set. The sky burned a deep red, like the desert's old scars. Nathan climbed into the driver's seat, starting the truck, its engine growling low. In the distance, Atlas leapt into the truck bed, eyes fixed south, where the darkness thickened, where the Death Valley crater waited silently for their return. Emily sat beside him, clutching her gear bag, voice nearly a whisper, "Let's go, before they notice." The truck rolled forward, leaving a long dust trail in the twilight. In Nathan's mind, Dwight Harlan's image lingered, a sworn officer turned into a man who used lives as fuel for technology. He wasn't just seeking evidence, he was returning to where conscience was buried, to confront the man who started it all. Night fell over Death Valley faster than Nathan expected. As their truck crossed the final sand ridge, near the former bunker site, the desert wind blew hard, carrying a dry chill and the acrid smell of metal. From a distance, the blasted area was now just a dark sand expanse, stretching endlessly, flat as if nothing had ever existed there. Nathan parked a kilometer away, killed the headlights, and draped a camouflage tarp over the cab. Atlas jumped from the truck bed, crouching low, nose grazing the sand, sniffing the wind. Emily spread the decoded technical map on the hood under a red light. The schematics show the main technical area on the third level with 2 auxiliary exits, one for ventilation, one for electrical maintenance. Nathan pointed to a small square marker 600 meters southeast of the blast site. There, the technical tunnel. If we follow that rock gully, it leads straight to it. He checked his weapon, activating a handheld thermal scanner. The screen showed faint heat signatures in the distance. Not human, but vehicles. "Military presence," he said softly. Emily squinted west, where moonlight glinted off metal. "They're back?" Nathan nodded. "Likely a site monitoring team. Given Euronix's methods, they probably set up a temporary post to watch the area." With Atlas, they moved along the hillside, staying low to avoid detection. The sand bore deep tire tracks, military off-road vehicle treads. "These are fresh," Nathan whispered, touching the sand. "They were here within the last 24 hours. Emily scanned around broken metal posts mixed with sand, exposed wires rooted like dead trees. They advanced a few hundred meters when Atlas halted, growling softly. Nathan swept his infrared light, spotting a partially collapsed rock hollow. Per the map, it was the auxiliary ventilation access. A steel frame protruded, mostly buried in sand, but faded yellow paint still read maintenance access, Echo facility. He jammed a folding shovel into the ground, digging, with Emily assisting. Dry sand poured in with each gust, but the steel hatch slowly emerged, about 1.5 meters wide, its mechanical lock rusted but hinges intact. Nathan touched the hatch, feeling an unnatural chill. He attached a battery to a voltmeter, pressing the probe to the surface. The needle twitched, showing a weak current. "Backup power's still active," he said quietly. "The emergency system might not be offline." Emily opened her tablet, connecting a data reader. "If so, I can tap into the diagnostic circuit from here, check which parts of the facility still have power." She typed commands, the screen displaying a simple circuit map. Most was dead, but a small southern section glowed pale green. There, the technical level. The data cores in that area. Powers sustained by long-term discharge batteries, likely an emergency designed to protect data. Nathan studied the screen, whispering. Harlan ensured the system could self-sustain. He might still be using this as a relay station. He drew his gun, checked the ammo, and turned the hatch handle. A faint metal screech sounded as the door opened centimeter by centimeter, cold air hitting his face. Below was a slanted ventilation shaft, wide enough for one person. Nathan flicked on his flashlight, illuminating rusted metal steps descending into the earth. "I'll go first," he said. Emily tied a rope around her waist, handing him the end. "If anything's wrong, I'll pull you up." She nodded, eyes fixed on the tablet. Nathan descended, each step echoing hollowly. The bunker air was far colder than outside. The ozone smell lingered, mixed with burnt iron. When he hit the ground, his flashlight swept a narrow, dust-covered corridor. Old wires lined the walls, some faintly blinking like fireflies. "Backup's running," he said through the radio. "You can come down." As she spoke, the room's lights flickered, then glowed dimly. Ceiling vents whirred, humming steadily. The central hub screen displayed old text, "E-Show System Online, Core Stabilization in Progress." Nathan drew his gun, eyes scanning. "What the hell?" Emily shook her head, hands still working. "Don't cut power, or I'll lose the data. I'm almost done." A loud clunk echoed from behind the new steel wall. Atlas's ears shot up, growling low. Nathan aimed the light. The wall trembled, emitting mechanical sounds like large gears turning slowly. Dust fell from the ceiling. "Something's behind it," he whispered, stepping closer, hand on the surface. Rhythmic pulses vibrated through his palm, almost like a heartbeat. Emily hit a final key, the laptop reading. "Data extraction 85% complete." She turned, "Just a few more minutes." Nathan nodded, eyes on the wall. He stepped back, pulling his knife, tapping the handle lightly. The echo was hollow, but a metallic clash sounded below. The quiet was shattered by heavy footsteps, slow, deliberate, echoing from the outer corridor. Atlas barked fiercely, backing toward Nathan. Emily looked up, voice tense. "Someone's in the bunker." Nathan doused the flashlight, pulling her behind a server rack. The steps continued, mixed with hissing air and mechanical clicks. Red warning lights swept the corridor, casting a long shadow of something approaching. From the core room's doorway, a figure emerged, nearly 2 meters tall, a steel skeleton with dark flesh clinging to metal. Its eyes glowed faint yellow. A chest plate bore the etched label, E7. Nathan held his breath, recognizing it from the buried containment bay, now standing. The biomechanical entity stepped slowly into the room, each move shaking the floor. Sensors on its head blinked, scanning the space. Emily clutched the drive, whispering, 10% left. Nathan signaled silence, crouching low, opening his side bag. Inside was a small emergency explosive pack, meant for destroying equipment if it couldn't be carried. He rigged the detonator, tucking it under the central power hub. A mechanical screech sounded as E7 turned toward them. Atlas barked, charging from cover to draw attention. Nathan hissed, "Atlas, back," but the dog growled, circling the entity. E7 pivoted, its left arm unfolding into a mechanical frame with a spinning blade. It swung, slicing a nearby server rack, sparks flying, the sound reverberating through the bunker. Emily shouted, "Done." She yanked the drive from the port, stuffing it into her jacket. Nathan pulled the detonator's trigger, setting a 20-second timer. "Go." He grabbed Emily's arm, sprinting. Atlas backed off, still barking, then bolted after them as the mechanical screech echoed behind. They ran down the corridor, red lights flashing, a system breach, alarm blaring through internal speakers. Nathan glanced back. E7 pursued, each step faster, metal clanging loudly. "Run," he yelled. Emily panted, clutching the drive bag. Nearing the exit, Nathan stopped, turned, and fired at a backup explosive on the wall. A blinding blast swallowed the space, knocking them forward. The shockwave pushed sand and dust through the shaft. Emily followed, with Atlas sliding down last, claws scraping the steel. On the concrete floor, Nathan scanned around, ahead. The corridor stretched deeper, a rusted sign reading technical excess. He aimed the light farther, catching a glint off a core control sign. Emily scanned for signals. Low voltage, about 30%. "The core's alive, Nathan. Someone's maintained this." Her words thickened the bunker's air. Nathan approached an old electrical panel, pressing a test button. The panel's indicator blinked, then glowed faintly. A green text screen displayed "System idle, maintenance mode," he whispered. Someone reactivated maintenance mode. Emily knelt at the control panel, plugging into an auxiliary port. "I'll access the interface. If we're lucky, We'll see the last operational logs. Nathan glanced at Atlas. The dog was silent, ears high, head tilted, as if hearing something distant. The wind stopped, yet a faint hum vibrated below, a low, steady pulse from deeper within. Nathan and Emily exchanged a glance. Without words, they knew Death Valley wasn't entirely silent. Beneath the sand and steel, something was still active, and they'd just woken it. Nathan and Emily crept through the narrow technical corridor, the flashlight beam sweeping stained concrete walls and rusted pipes. The bunker air was thick with ozone and burnt metal, as if the place had just stirred from a long sleep. Atlas moved a few steps ahead, body low, nose grazing the floor. Occasionally he paused, whining softly, then continued, ears always aimed deeper into the bunker. The corridor led to a large steel door etched with core control, authorized personnel only. The magnetic lock was dead, but the auxiliary panel glowed faintly. Emily knelt, connecting a cable to the data port, her tablet flashing accessing maintenance mode. Seconds later, the lock clicked, the red light turning green. Nathan pushed the door, thick dust falling like ash. The core room emerged in dim light. Dozens of server racks circled a central control hub. Thick cables ran along the ceiling, feeding a cylindrical structure nearly 3 meters tall, coated in metallic moss and dust. A few LEDs blinked faint blue, proof the system wasn't fully dead. Emily exhaled softly, eyes wide. God, it's still running. Nathan approached, inspecting the data modules on the racks. These are modular drives. If we grab even one, can you extract the logs? Emily nodded, opening her pack for extraction tools. I'll prioritize the primary neural archive. It holds all resonance records. She plugged her decoder into a side port, the screen reading. Integrity 62%. Data link stable. As she worked, Nathan circled, scanning the room. At the far end, he noticed a metal wall unlike the rest. Newer welded over. He touched it. The steel was unnaturally cold, emitting a low hum, like current flowing behind it. Emily, this isn't original, he said. She looked up, frowning. It's powered. Yeah, stronger than the rest of the bunker. He activated the energy meter, reading 14.6 volts, too high for backup mode. Someone rewired this for a separate power source. Emily glanced at her laptop, speaking quickly. We need to hurry. The system's rebooting. I see a reinitializing sector bear process running in the background. They crawled out the auxiliary hatch as hot air surged behind. Nathan pulled Emily and Atlas clear, all three collapsing onto the sand, coughing. Behind them, the ground trembled. A deep boom echoed, then silenced. Heat rose, swirling with the wind, sand falling softly. Emily lay back, gasping, hands still gripping the drive bag. Nathan pushed himself up, staring at the crater, smoke thinning. We got what we needed, he said hoarsely. And maybe just woke hell, Atlas whimpered, standing, fur dust-coated. Below, a faint, distant hum persisted, slow, like a machine's lingering breath. The underground hum hadn't faded when a sharp mechanical screech erupted from the hatch, as if something massive tore free from its moorings. The sand under Nathan's feet vibrated heavily. He yanked Emily back, eyes fixed on the crater. Firelight from the earlier blast lingered, glinting off warped steel and rising smoke. Then, through the haze, a colossal shape emerged, nearly 3 meters tall, a patchwork of steel and human remains, red cables like veins along its machine frame. Where a head should be, a black hemispherical mask reflected faint moonlight, etched deeply with Harlan. Emily froze, gasping. No way. Harlan's dead. No. Nathan cut in, voice rough. He transferred himself into the system. That's not human anymore. The entity moved, emitting a distorted buzz like a broken speaker. A half-human, half-machine voice sounded, warped but familiar. Nathan Cole, you've destroyed my legacy. Nathan gripped his gun, steadying himself. You killed people to build it, Harlan. What's down there should have stayed buried. The voice returned, deeper, more distorted. Nothing is buried. We are evolving. You'll join this resonance. Harlan's metal chest glowed blue, cables trembling. Heat radiated, stirring the sand at its feet. In a flash, smaller mechanical arms unfolded from its sides, spinning like saws. Emily backed away, trembling. "Nathan, it's charging! Run to the eastern ridge!" Nathan yelled, firing at the monster's shoulder joints. Bullets hit steel, sparking harmlessly. Harlan crouched, moving fast for its size. A mechanical arm swept wide, sand flying like a wave. A metal shard grazed Nathan's shoulder, leaving a bloody streak. Atlas charged, barking, circling behind, and biting an exposed cable on Harlan's right leg. Sparks flew, the leg stuttering. Nathan seized the moment, pulling a spare C4 pack, setting a 30-second timer, and tossing it into a crack under Harlan's feet. "Emily, go!" he shouted. She ran toward the gully, clutching the data bag. Harlan spun, its screech filling the air. "You can't stop me, Cole!" Its voice heavy, warped through countless frequencies. Nathan yanked Atlas back, triggering the switch. The first blast roared like thunder, hurling dirt and rock. Harlan's leg shattered, but it didn't fall. Its right arm rose, firing an electric spark that struck the ground near Nathan. The shock wave threw him into the sand. Atlas leapt forward, standing between him and the monster, barking wildly. From afar, helicopter engines roared, low, steady, growing clearer. Emily shouted through the radio. "They're here. I see at least 3. Oronix logos." Nathan gritted his teeth. "Of course," he called them. He stood, pulling Atlas toward Emily's direction. Behind, Harlan still moved, its massive frame staggering but unrelenting. Helicopter searchlights cut through the smoke, sweeping the desert, glinting off Harlan's metal body. A voice boomed from a speaker. "This is Oronix security. All units withdraw. Target will be handled by containment team." But the monster didn't obey. It looked skyward, raising its left arm. The wrist opened, exposing an energy core. A white plasma beam shot upward, striking one of the 3 helicopters. A piercing sound rang out. The rotor shattered, and the chopper spiraled down, crashing in flames. The other 2 scattered, firing small explosive rounds to encircle the area. Nathan yanked Emily down behind a rocky outcrop. Sand and metal shards whistled past their heads. "We have to get out now," Emily shouted. "He'll blow the whole facility if it's still powered." Nathan panted, checking his bag. 1 explosive block and a manual detonator left. Scanning around, he said urgently. "If I detonate the tunnel, the core below will collapse. They'll have no way to retrieve the data." "But you'll get trapped," Emily protested. "No, I know an auxiliary exit on the eastern ridge." He pulled the pin, placing the explosive in a crack where the technical tunnel connected. "Go when I signal." Atlas stood between them, growling in alert. Harlan had turned toward them, lower body dragging through the sand, glowing wires like pulsing veins. Each step emitted a long screech, underscored by a deep hum from his chest core. His distorted voice crackled through a speaker. "You don't understand, Cole. I am Echo. I am the bridge between humanity and resonance. You can't destroy it." Nathan raised his gun, firing at the glowing chest core. 2 bullets hit, sparking, but failed to pierce the casing. Harlan roared, lifting his remaining arm, morphing into a small plasma gun, unleashing a blinding blue beam. The ground exploded beside Nathan, the blast knocking him down. "Atlas, go!" he yelled. The dog grabbed his sleeve, pulling him back, just in time. Nathan triggered the timer. 15 seconds. He and Atlas ran toward Emily, sliding into a sandy gully. Behind, Harlan advanced, flames licking his warped frame. Above, the second helicopter closed in, dropping cables with 2 operatives. They fired bursts at Harlan, but bullets ricocheted off his steel body. "Target out of control," one shouted over the radio. "Activate termination protocol." Nathan and Emily reached the gully's mouth. He pulled her up, and they rolled onto the ground above. Atlas leapt after, just as the explosion roared. Fire erupted from the bunker, hurling sand and steel. The shock wave knocked all 3 down. In the distance, a helicopter veered off course from the blast, its rotor smashing into a hill, exploding in a fireball. The ground cracked, collapsing in chunks, swallowing the bunker's remains. A black smoke column rose, laced with red glints of molten metal. A final metallic clang echoed, a guttural, half-human, half-machine scream. Then silence. Nathan lay prone, ears ringing, dust caking his face. Emily crawled to him, grabbing his shoulder. "You okay?" He nodded, breathing heavily, pulling Atlas close. The dog coughed softly, dust-covered but alert. Nathan looked at the valley, now a sea of smoke, and said hoarsely, "We took out the tunnel, and whatever was in it." Emily stared at the distant flames, face pale with shock. If that was really Harlan, he turned himself into Echo's core. Nathan replied, voice low, now there's nothing left for him to return to. Above, the last Aeronix helicopter circled, then flew west, leaving the smoking desert and howling wind. Nathan helped Emily up, eyes toward the dawning horizon. The ground still trembled faintly, and somewhere deep in the sand, a weak pulse sounded, unclear if it was the explosion's aftershock or Echo's lingering breath in the dead desert. The final blast still echoed underground as Nathan pulled Emily and Atlas from the crater's edge. Behind, Death Valley's sky blazed with subsurface fires. The desert wind shifted, blowing hot smoke and dust toward them. Emily panted, clutching the data bag, while Nathan scanned, orienting himself. "Northwest," he shouted. "We need to leave now, or the next collapse will take everything." The three ran along the rocky slope, but they hadn't gone far when engine sounds rumbled from the horizon, multiple SUVs and armored vehicles speeding through the sand, headlights forming a moving light barrier. Above, the two surviving Aeronix helicopters circled, dropping flares to pinpoint targets. "They're not giving up," Emily said, voice trembling. Nathan checked his ammo, half a magazine left. "No, and they won't stop until the data's buried down there." He signaled Emily to crawl into a gully, then pulled Atlas behind a large boulder. The dog panted, exhausted, limping on its left leg. Nathan checked, seeing blood soaking the old bandage. He squeezed its shoulder, voice low. "Hang in there, old friend. We're not done yet." Enemy vehicles closed in, searchlights sweeping the desert. Nathan opened his pack, pulling out two remaining C4 blocks and a timed detonator. In the distance, mobile fuel tanks and metal crates from Aeronix's initial cleanup littered the area. An idea sparked. "Emily," he said quickly, "those tanks hold jet fuel. If we detonate them, the chain reaction will bury the entire bunker site. No one could dig it up." She nodded, eyes flashing. "How much time do you need?" 10 minutes. When I signal, drive the truck east, don't stop." He handed her the data bag. "Keep this. If I don't make it out, get it to Reno." Emily started to speak, but Nathan turned, carrying Atlas along the sandy ridge toward the fuel tanks. The wind grew fierce. Sand stung like needles. A sandstorm brewed in the west, a massive swirl swallowing distant lights. Nathan wrapped his face with a scarf, crawling while planting explosives around the tanks, wiring them to a remote detonator. The wind howled, forcing him to stab his knife into the ground for balance. In the distance, the enemy vehicles split formation. 5 SUVs fanned out in a perimeter, 2 others trailing flare launchers. Searchlights swept Nathan's position, but the storm's thickness hit him. He crouched behind a tank, watching the countdown. A small explosion sounded from the north. Emily had started the truck, drawing attention. Headlights swung, chasing the truck's taillights, vanishing into the storm. Nathan seized the moment, pressing the detonator. A massive explosion tore through the night. Flames erupted like a sun, linking the fuel tanks. The shockwave blasted sand into a tidal wave. The ground shuddered, then collapsed inward. From afar, Aeronix vehicles were tossed like toys. One helicopter was knocked off course, crashing into a hill in a fiery burst. Nathan and Atlas were thrown down. He shielded the dog's head, hot sand pouring over them. The blast echoed, blending with the storm's artificial thunder. When it settled, the bunker site was a gaping crater, swallowing vehicle wrecks and molten metal. Atlas whimpered. Nathan saw blood soaking the bandage. The dog's breathing labored. He tore his shirt, rebandaging the wound, voice choked. "You're okay, we're almost done." The dog met his eyes, cloudy but alert, pressing its head into his hand. The wind was blinding. Nathan crouched, hoisting Atlas onto his back, and ran east, following the truck's tracks. Each step dragged like pulling the desert itself. Behind, flames burned, fading in the storm. Crossing the final ridge, Emily's truck loomed in a faint lightning flash. Nathan limped to it, opening the door, placing Atlas on the back seat. Emily stared, horrified at the blood on his shoulder and collar. "Are you?" "I'm fine," he cut in, voice rough. "He's worse." She looked at Atlas, eyes welling, then started the truck. The engine roared, tires rolling through thick sand, plunging into the blinding wind. Behind, Death Valley vanished in flames. Project Echo's remnants buried under hundreds of meters of molten sand. The storm thickened, obscuring everything in gray-yellow haze. Emily gripped the wheel. Nathan bandaged Atlas's wound. The dog whimpered, breathing faint, but holding on, gazing out the window where distant red lights flickered. Echo's final pulse. "We did it," Emily said softly, voice lost in the wind. Nathan tightened the bandage, eyes forward. "No, we just survived. But at least, the world's free of one nightmare." Outside, the storm swallowed everything, erasing the facility, vehicles, bodies, and Harlan. As the wind eased, only silent desert remained, flat, as if never disturbed. Inside the truck, Nathan stroked Atlas's head, whispering, "Hold on, old friend, we're not there yet." The dog stirred, tail twitching faintly, breathing steady but thin. Emily glanced in the rear view, catching Nathan's resolute eyes in the lightning's flash. A soldier who'd buried a dark chapter of humanity in the desert's heart. Behind them, Death Valley was a giant tomb, where Project Echo was erased from the map, along with all the secrets Harlan tried to keep. But in Nathan's mind, the explosion's echo lingered, a warning that some things, though buried deep in sand, never truly rest. The truck shook violently, wind howling with the sandstorm. Nearly 2 hours had passed since the blast. Death Valley now a sea of dust. The speedometer wavered, GPS signal gone. Emily gripped the wheel, peering through the sand-crusted windshield. Nathan sat beside her, cradling Atlas, whose breathing was heavy and uneven, blood soaking the bandage. "We need to stop," Emily said. "The truck's overheating. If we keep going, the engine will die." Nathan nodded, scanning, then pointed to a shadowy hill in the haze. "Turn right, that spot might block the wind." The truck lurched into a hollow. The wind eased, visibility slightly clearer. Nathan stepped out, dragging the portable satellite antenna. He staked it into the sand, opened the device, and connected the laptop. Emily stayed in the cab, checking a backup map and the data drive. "All the evidence is ready," she said. "If we send this, Aronix can't deny it." Nathan nodded, wiping sand from the screen, entering access codes. "I'll transmit through an old military channel, 312.06. No one monitors it, but civilian satellites can pick it up." He plugged in the drive, the indicator flashing red. The screen read, "Uplink established. Signal weak." Emily stepped out, wrapping a cloak against the wind, standing beside him. "Weak signal, but enough," Nathan said hoarsely. "If we don't do this now, they'll track us. Just finish the transmission, and you handle the rest." He hit upload, the progress bar crawling. Each percentage felt endless. Sand stung their faces, wind roaring through the rocks. Atlas lay at their feet, head on Nathan's arm, eyes cloudy but open. Emily glanced over, voice soft. "Is he okay?" Nathan shook his head, hiding emotion. "We need to finish before everything stops." Suddenly, interference spiked. The screen flashed, interference detected. Connection unstable. Nathan gritted his teeth. "They're jamming the signal. Aronix must have satellites scanning frequencies." He adjusted the antenna, switching to pulse transmission. The indicator turned yellow, then faint green. Emily held the cable against the wind. The progress hit 64%. The storm intensified, sand like reverse rain, battering the truck. Everything shook. Emily shouted, signals dropping fast. Nathan crouched, opening a backup battery, wiring it directly to the truck's power. Just a few more minutes. The indicator flashed red, then green. 78%, 89%, the screen blinked, warning signal drop imminent. Nathan yelled, hold on. Emily shielded the laptop from the wind. 92%, 97%. Then the signal died. The screen went black. The wind paused, leaving only sand's hiss. Nathan panted, tapping the keyboard. No, don't do this to me. Then the power light flickered back, a slow flashing message, upload complete, transmission verified. Emily exhaled, nearly collapsing. Nathan stared at the screen, then sank into the sand, breathing out. We did it, he whispered. All the evidence is sent, logs, videos, contracts, Harlan's images. Another gust hit, tilting the antenna. Nathan tried folding it, but the wind was too strong. The storm closed in, faster, fiercer than any he'd seen. The night blurred into yellow-gray haze. Emily clutched the laptop, sand caking her face and hair. Get in the truck, she shouted. But Nathan stood still, eyes on the western sky, where purple-green lightning flashed through the dust. Nothing left to stay for, he said softly, then lifted Atlas, wrapping him in his jacket. They ran to the truck, wind slamming them. As the door slammed shut, the cab's air thickened. Emily checked the external camera, but it showed only haze. The system lagged, capturing the antenna toppling, buried in sand. The final frame showed Nathan and Emily hunched in the truck, swallowed by swirling sand. Lightning flared, then faded. The screen blinked, the image vanishing, leaving a fading message. Transmission successful. Data relayed to secure network. In the brief moment before the signal cut, the last image uploaded to the satellite, 2 people and a dog in the storm's heart, consumed by endless sand. The only living proof of those who ended Project Echo, exposing its deadly secrets to the world. A month later, Death Valley remained a dead zone, now ringed by metal fences and glaring red signs. Earthquake Research Zone, no entry. Government reports called the Nevada explosion a result of underground drilling and test blasting for mineral surveys. No mention of Project Echo, the smoke columns, or the black helicopters that once circled the sands. Local news ran brief stories, removed within hours. In Washington, a silent internal investigation began. No press releases, no named investigators. It unfolded in shadows, under defense document leak pretenses. But among investigative journalists, a name resurfaced. Emily Rhodes, known for exposing secret military projects. She lived incognito in a small wooden house on Reno's pine-forested outskirts. Early that month, dry desert wind dusted her windows. Emily sat at her desk, scanning emails, most blocked or faked. Since the sandstorm, no signal came from Nathan. He and Atlas vanished. She'd searched, sent rescue requests, but the only response was no record of matching missing persons. That afternoon, as she prepared to log off, a notification appeared. One file encrypted received. Unknown source. The sender was a random string, untraceable. Emily hesitated, then opened her decryption tool. It prompted a password. She typed Echo 79. The screen shifted, the indicator flashed green, and a folder opened. Inside were dozens of files labeled evidence_archive. The first was a video, Nathan's bunker footage, rusted panels, a Project Echo Facility 12 sign. Harlan as a man, then the biomechanical E7 entity. Nathan's voice closed the video. If you're watching this, we didn't make it back. Project Echo is real, and it should never be restarted. Emily sat motionless for minutes, eyes fixed. She opened the second folder, DARPA documents. DoD Aronix contracts, Harlan signatures, personnel missing since 1978. Each file was time-stamped, geotagged and verified with internal military codes, accessible only to system insiders. A separate text file was named Cole _message.txt. Emily opened it. 2 lines. If you get this, the transmission worked. Tell the world. Don't let echo return. N. She touched the keyboard, heart pounding. Amid the wind's howl outside, the sandstorm night returned. Lightning machine roars. Nathan's resolute eyes before the camera died. For 3 days, Emily worked sleeplessly. She backed up the data on 3 drives, hidden separately. She contacted old colleagues at the Sentinel, a global paper that published her Orion leaks. Their reply was brief. If verified, this is the biggest military leak since the Manhattan Project. But Emily knew Aronix wouldn't sit idle. The company held a press conference, stating, "No project named Project Echo exists in Aronix Defense Systems history." Their spokesperson denied all claims, calling leaked images AI-generated. Major media fell silent. Small outlets were taken down fast. Meanwhile, the government's investigation shifted quietly. An anonymous source warned Emily a special committee was formed, likely to suppress the info before release. She knew she was racing time. On the 10th night, Emily finished her exposé, E.H.O., the Resonance Project, and Harlan's Shadow. The 30-page report included videos, contracts, server data, and Nathan's testimony. The opening stated, "All evidence herein is verified by valid military codes and direct witnesses. Project Echo is not a myth. It's a buried truth." She sat still, watching the data upload to the Sentinel's secure network. In that moment, outside her window, desert wind rattled the blinds like a sigh. Emily whispered, almost to herself, "You kept your promise, Nathan. Now it's my turn." The screen's indicator turned green. Upload complete. She leaned back, eyes on the report's final line. Nathan's journal entry. "Some things are built to touch the universe, but not the human soul." Outside, Death Valley lay silent under thick sand. But this time, the silence wasn't concealment. It was the end of a secret the world would soon hear. The story of Project Echo. The experiment that spoke back is not just science fiction. It mirrors a real fear in American society today. The trade-off between technological progress and human ethics. Project Echo, aiming to transmit signals through the ionosphere and ultimately store human consciousness in systems, raises a question America faces in the age of AI and biotech. How far should we go to recreate humanity with machines? Harlan, the project's founder, crossed that line, merging himself into technology to become a resonance entity, losing his humanity. This is a direct warning to a society where big tech and defense contractors wield power over future-altering technologies. Nathan and Emily's journey symbolizes civic duty, standing against authority to reveal truth. Nathan fought not just for survival, but for justice, sacrificing to bring evidence to light. Emily, as a journalist, embodies independent press, a cornerstone of American democracy. In an era of manipulated information, their actions remind us that transparency and ethics must accompany technology. The lesson from Project Echo for America today isn't fear of progress, but self-restraint. Humanity shouldn't seek immortality through machines, but protect its essence with truth, courage, and morality. Because without conscience, technology leaves us as hollow echoes in our own desert. Thank you for joining us in uncovering Project Echo's secrets, where the line between human and machine grows thinner than ever. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more stories about America's buried mysteries.